his bromance with Putin, and it was actually called that, I think, by the former Prime Minister of Australia, who said he saw Trump with Putin, and Trump was like, just gaga over Putin, because Putin does what he would like to do: kill his opposition, imprison his opposition, drive, journalists and others into exile, rule without any check or balance. That's what Trump really wants. And so we have to be very conscious of how he sees the world, because in that world, he only sees strongmen leaders. He sees Putin, he sees Xi, he sees Kim Jong Un in North Korea. Those are the people he is modeling himself after.
Because you have been right about everything.
You were saying that. I mean, that my grandchildren would laugh at that.
So there are a lot of people out there who are disillusioned by the political process. They are upset about this or that, or they just feel like politics isn't working for them. And, one of the things that the Republicans are able to do in voter suppression, both by making voting harder, people say, why go through the trouble? Or through disinformation and misinformation, they are able to dissuade people from voting. But for people who come up to you and say, look, I feel like you were cheated. I think that your election was not on the up and up because Russia Russia got involved, and Donald Trump and all that. I voted for President Biden in 2020, but we lived through Trump. Trump didn't, we made it through him once. Why, and it wasn't great, but we survived. Why should I continue to be engaged in this process? Why shouldn't I just, say, it's not for me, this voting thing, or I should cast a protest vote? Like, what do you tell people about what is at stake here if they think they made it through Trump once and, they'll survive it again?
Well, the first thing I say is I'm for Joe Biden on the merits. I think he's done a good job as president, and I often rattle off the many things that I agree with and that were difficult to get through a divided Congress, which he did, and which is helping to reshape our future, whether it's infrastructure or the price of prescription drugs or getting competitive with China on science, with the CHIPS bill. I mean, everything you can, see that is in process thanks to the Biden administration, I think is very positive for America. Now, the results are not always blaring in great big neon lights, but we're laying a very strong grounding. And I think maybe even more importantly, he's modeling responsible leadership, which is not flashy, not engaging in vitriolic attacks on people, in rallies and online, not threatening to execute people and putting them in jail, and the kind of threats that you hear coming out of Donald Trump should scare every American, because with an authoritarian, you never know what side of the bed they'll wake up on. You never know who they're going to be upset with today. You never know if somebody, basically bribes them by giving business to a relative or, some other gift, that they will try to destroy one business to advantage another. You just never know, because they don't believe in the rule of law. They don't believe in institutions. And therefore, if you give them a chance to be more unfettered than he was in his first term, when he was trying to figure out what he could do, and he had actually some people around who were restraining him, that is all going to be gone. If he ever gets back near the White House again, it will be like having a dictator. And I don't say that lightly, but go back and read Project 2025. They're going to fire everybody. Oh, the person in, the government who knows about what may be the next pandemic, get rid of him. He didn't vote for me, or I don't, like the way he looks. I mean, just think about the chaos and the instability that we got through with COVID, although it cost hundreds of thousands more lives than it should have, because he was such an inept leader when we needed somebody to really grab hold and guide us through this unprecedented global pandemic. So I think people who say, well, I'm not enthusiastic, I don't know what difference it would make. and they say, oh, Joe Biden's old. I always say, look, you're right. Joe Biden is old. He's also effective. He's compassionate. He cares about people. He wants to maintain our democracy. He will abide by the results of a fair and free election. And Donald Trump is old, and he has 91 felony criminal indictments against him. And in a court of law, it's not just rhetoric. You got to step up and prove evidence. That's one of the reasons you win so many cases, Mark, because the other side is in there just, carrying on, making claims they can't prove. And you actually step up and you got facts and you got evidence. How novel. And you win because you have a better case. This man has been indicted 91 times. And do we really expect him to govern in a stable, appropriate, rules-based, respectful way? Of course not. And if you're somebody who thinks, well, yeah, but he's entertaining and politics is boring and, I don't know what they do anyway, you cannot think like that in this election. No matter what issue you care about, I don't care what it is, you will find that the next president will have some influence on that. And you want somebody, at the very least, who will try to find what the facts are and make decisions that are evidence-based. And finally, I think we haven't talked much about the international arena, but, his bromance with Putin, and it was actually called that, I think, by the former prime minister of Australia, who said he saw Trump with Putin, and Trump was like, just gaga over Putin, because Putin does what he would like to do: kill his opposition, imprison his opposition, drive, journalists and others into exile, rule without any check or balance. That's what Trump really wants. And so we have to be very conscious of how he sees the world, because in that world, he only sees strongmen leaders. He sees Putin. He sees Xi. He sees Kim Jong Un in North Korea. Those are the people he is modeling himself after. And we've been down this road in our, world history. We sure don't want to go down that again. And especially when, my view, having negotiated with Putin and knowing that one of the reasons he went after me is because he knew I would, deal with him in an appropriate way, and Trump would basically do whatever he wanted. It's really important to think about what could happen to our world with Trump back in the White House, withdrawing us from NATO, not caring about what happens in Europe, our biggest trading partner, the place where we share values with, the idea that he wants Ukraine to fail, the idea that he doesn't want us to be able to surveil our enemies. I mean, this is a very scary prospect.
Thank you for telling me that. See, there's a typical fake news deal.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
It's not about justice, it's not about agenda, it's not about mobilizing people, it's about dialing for corporate dollars. These two parties have sold the U.S. government and the American people to the highest bidders.